Without going out the door, you can still understand the world. Without looking out the window, you can still understand and know the Tao of heaven. The further you go, the less you know. So, the sage doesn't travel, yet knows. Doesn't show off, yet is famous. Doesn't act, yet accomplishes. Right. So, just to recap, the Tao is the way of the universe. It's the mysterious way of the universe. In a Christian context, it would be God's nature, even though it doesn't abide to the nature of God being personified in any way. It's just, think of it like in Star Wars, like it's the Force, it's the way of the Force, right? If that makes it that makes clearer. A clearer ideology to me, and a comparison to today's modern understanding of the spirit of the way of things in general. And it's nameless. You can't name it, because the moment you give it a name, you put a ceiling on it and it becomes definable. But it isn't definable, because if you try and dot all the I's and cross all the T's, then what? Then you've defined it, and then so it's left completely mysterious, and that's a beautiful thing, because then it always leaves room for expansion of perception and understanding, and an ongoing understanding upon understanding and upon understanding, and it's a natural growth and order of growth and evolution. So I'm going to just break this down again. Without going out the door, you can still understand the world. Now, when you think about Charlie Parker, I've been told many times by people and historians that he only had a few records. You know, he's from Kansas, and at the time when he was practicing, God knows how many hours a day, he only had a few records to go by. And you know, he was in Kansas, and this is before he started traveling, and it's before he hit New York, you know, to meet Dizzy Gillespie and people like that. And he only had a few records, and he had the experience of hearing other people, you know, that used to pass through town when they were touring, and he didn't have the full education like we have today. We have YouTube today. We have everything on YouTube. You know, this is on YouTube. Today you can get iPods or phones even. You can get a phone, and you can put, you know, 100 albums on there, 500 albums on there, 1,000 albums on there, and you don't need it. I don't think you need it. I mean, when I think about when I first started out, not that I'm much of a comparison at all to Charlie Parker, but, you know, when I started out, I only had a few albums. I had a handful of Stan Getz albums, a Dexter Gordon album, a couple of Charlie Parker albums, and Kind of Blue. And that was it, really. And it was all I needed, and I was really content with that. And even from one album, one Charlie Parker album, that can be enough. So let's go back to that. Without going out the door, you can understand the world. Well, you can understand the world of a huge amount of jazz music by just studying a few albums. And really, really going to town on those albums, analysing everything you can analyse. You know, you take the album Kind of Blue. You know, you got John Coltrane, you got Cannonball Adderley, Miles Davis, Bill Evans. You know, all these people on those albums, all these amazing, wonderful compositions, the sculptured solos, one after another. Wow, incredible. Do you need to travel to New York to understand that and to really get that? Not necessarily, no. You need to feel the music, feel the album, submerge yourself into one recording. And that is something that I see is less of a common thing nowadays because of the excessive abundance of everything that we have. Sometimes too much is not a good thing. And we don't need that much. We don't need to go far and far beyond, because it can blind us. It can blind us. It can deafen us. And so sometimes I have students saying, "Oh, what should I be listening to?" And so I say to them, "Well, what are you listening to?" And they say, "Well, I really like this album. I really like that album." I said, "Stop. That's enough. That's enough. That really is enough." So that's one thing. Next section. Without looking out the window, you can still know the Tao of heaven. Practice. Put as much. If you really love something, you don't need to go to every jam session. You don't really need to go to every gig that's happening in town. You don't necessarily need to get your face seen or your face known or your playing known too soon without spending enough hours and enough time in your own solitude, which is a very precious thing, to practice and to practice and to practice and practice. When I was a bit younger, I literally used to do 7-8 hours a day. I used to do a good 6 hours, 5-6 hours in college when I was in music college. And honour yourself. Have a reverence for your own solitude, because it's a beautiful space, and that time that you build developing that, it can really set up your future of how you continue to practice and how you continue to sculpture and mould your own evolutionary state. The further you go, the less you know, right? So that kind of nips that in the bud, really. So the sage doesn't travel, yet knows. Doesn't show off, yet is famous. Doesn't act, yet accomplishes. So I'm going to read that again. So the sage doesn't travel, yet knows. Doesn't show off, yet is famous. Doesn't act, yet accomplishes. Okay, we don't really live in an age nowadays, I don't feel anyway, where all the best people and all the most accomplished people become instantly known. Because I'm not saying that doesn't happen across the board. Of course, there are many wonderful, absolutely breathtaking, incredible musicians that get the limelight that they deserve. But I know so many in London, so many in America and across Europe, and I'm sure there are across the world and throughout the world who can't afford to become well known. They can't afford to. They don't have the money. They don't have the finances to pour into any marketing in order for nowadays to get any kind of attention or recognition that they really truly do deserve. And yet these people are. They're some of my heroes. I could name you some people that I'm not going to, but I could name you quite a lot of people who are absolutely astounding musicians, astounding saxophone players, astounding drummers, bass players, piano players, trumpet players, and you will probably never hear of them. But if you do, follow them. Try and follow them as much as you can. And not only that, but some of these people, they don't want the fame. They don't want it. Because sometimes becoming famous, it's like describing the way of the universe itself, this thing that the Chinese people called the Tao, right? The way of the universe, the way of God's nature. That if you do dot all the I's and cross all the T's, it puts a cap on it. It puts a ceiling upon the roof. It puts a roof upon the growth, one's natural growth, and then you become limited instead of limitless in the way you wish to go, in the way how you wish to evolve, so to speak. And so not everybody wants that. You don't have to show off. And if you don't show off, if you go into a performance without wanting to show off, or without having that egoic perception and concepts and ideology of wanting to show anything off, you're really coming and playing and performing and expressing yourself from the truest source of who you are, which is an expression of not what you are, but who you are. Not what you are. I'm a musician, I'm a saxophonist, I'm a piano player, or I'm a jazz musician, or I'm a rock musician, or I'm a pop musician, or I'm an improviser. No, that's what you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. So there's a difference between what you are and who you are. And so if you come from the source of who you are, you're not showing off. You're not doing anything on a superficial level. And sometimes, if you come from that, if you play one note from that source, it's all you need. There doesn't need to be an act. There doesn't need to be an act at all. You just are naturally being. And that natural sense of being will connect, right? So the sage doesn't travel, yet knows. Doesn't show off, yet is famous. Doesn't act, yet accomplishes. It's all food for thought. Everybody has their own subjective ideals and ideologies and what they want. But anyway, here's just a little example, and I thought this would be very relevant, of this really quite amazing book of 81 poems called the Dao De Jing, which is ancient Chinese philosophy. It's not a religion, it's philosophy. It predates Buddhism, and it's otherwise known as the Book of Virtues. And it really honours art as well, because a lot of Daoist followers, they express themselves through beautiful Chinese art and Tai Chi, and it bled into martial arts as well, and other art forms of painting, fine painting, and many other areas. It's all food for thought. Yeah, and I just wanted to share that with you.